What if, what if the clothes you wear to work literally determined whether you lived or died?
I mean, that would definitely add some pressure to your morning routine.
Right. Well, welcome to the deep dive. And, before we step into today's topic, which is honestly one of the most dangerous, highly guarded spaces in ancient history, I really want to offer a warm, truly divine blessing for your day-to-day and for your entire upcoming week.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope you find wisdom and peace in whatever you're stepping into this week.
Definitely. And today we are stepping into a really profound exploration of two biblical study texts, the Holman and the NAA Study Bibles. And we're focusing entirely on Exodus chapter 28.
Right, which gives us this incredibly detailed look at the elaborate, deeply symbolic, and as you mentioned, functionally dangerous garments of the ancient Israelite high priest.
So we're talking about Aaron and his sons, right?
Right.
Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar.
Exactly. And, this isn't just a lesson on ancient fashion. Well, it's a blueprint. It's a physical demonstration of how humanity was instructed to approach the divine.
Okay, so before we look at the specific clothes, we really have to understand who is making them and why. The text says these garments are to be made for glory and beauty.
Right, and the materials they use are incredibly precious. The text specifically lists gold, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, along with fine twisted linen.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second because, if we're dealing with God, why the obsession with colorful yarn and gold? To a lot of modern readers, that sounds exactly like the kind of pagan idol-worshipping stuff the Israelites were supposed to be leaving behind.
Yeah, that's a super common reaction. But the Holman study notes point out a really fascinating detail that completely flips that idea.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, these garments were actually a stark contrast to the pagan rituals happening around them at the time. In those cultures, priests spent most of their time literally dressing and feeding their physical idol statues.
Oh, wow. So they treated the gods like dependents that needed human care.
Exactly. But here, the living God cannot be dressed or fed by human hands. So the dynamic is reversed. God's glory is being reflected onto the priest through these garments.
That is so interesting. And the NWA notes actually add another layer to this, right?
Hmm.
They mention that these specific materials, the gold, the blue, purple, scarlet yarn, those are the exact same materials used for the tabernacle itself.
Yes, which means the priest is essentially a walking, breathing extension of God's dwelling place.
But wait, let me push back on the creation process a bit.
Yeah.
God tells Moses to bring in skilled workers, but this isn't just about hiring a good tailor, is it? The text says God filled these craftsmen with a spirit of wisdom.
Right, it does.
Does this mean the very act of sewing and crafting was considered like a divine spiritual gift here?
It absolutely does. It shows us that in this context, wisdom isn't just an intellectual thing. It's not just sitting around thinking deep thoughts.
Right.
It's practical. It's highly creative. The ability to weave yarn and hammer gold to reflect divine truth, that is the spirit of wisdom in action.
I love that. So, okay, moving from the general purpose to the first major piece of the wardrobe, let's talk about how the priest physically carried the weight of his role with the ephod.
Right, the ephod. It's sort of an apron-like garment, and the most striking feature is on the shoulder pieces. There are two onyx stones placed right there on the shoulders.
And these stones are engraved, right? Like a signet seal.
Exactly. They have the names of the 12 tribes of Israel engraved on them, 6 on one stone, 6 on the other, specifically in order of their birth.
And the NAA notes highlight that these are called stones of memory before the Lord.
Yeah, which represents this idea of bidirectional mediation. It's mediation from God to Israel, and then from Israel back to God.
The physical symbolism there is just huge. The priest literally carries the people on his shoulders. And shoulders represent, strength, burden, responsibility.
Oh, absolutely.
When he walks into the sanctuary, he isn't going in alone. He is bearing the weight of an entire nation on his back.
It's a massive burden. But, a leader can't just carry a burden. They also have to lead with love and direction, which takes us from the shoulders down to the chest.
Ah, the breastpiece of judgment. This thing is wild. It's square, folded double, and it has 4 rows of precious stones on it.
Right, and each stone is different.
Yeah, it lists sardius, topaz, carbuncle, emerald, sapphire, diamond, jacinth, agate, amethyst, beryl, onyx, and jasper. It's just a crazy amount of gems.
And each of those 12 stones represents one of the 12 tribes. It's a very deliberate shift from the shoulders to the heart. The text specifically says Aaron will carry the names of the sons of Israel over his heart.
Here's where it gets really interesting. because you have those uniform onyx stones on the shoulders, but the stones on the heart are all completely different. Diamonds, sapphires, amethysts.
Right, they're entirely unique.
It makes me think of an analogy for the listener, like a parent's love. On your shoulders, you bear the total weight of your family equally. You carry the burden of providing for everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But in your heart, you know that every single child is distinctly precious and unique. You don't love them as a generic group. You love their individual, multifaceted personalities.
That is a perfect way to look at it. The priest carries the nation's weight uniformly, but holds their distinct identities over his heart, and inside this breastpiece is another crucial element.
The Urim and Thummim.
Yes.
Yeah.
The great mystery of the priestly garments.
Seriously, what do the Holman notes say about them? Because they're used to determine God's will, right?
They are. The notes mention that while we don't know exactly what they looked like, their names likely mean light and perfection, or possibly cursed and faultless.
Oh, wow. So they were essentially a way to get a definitive yes or no from God.
Exactly. A tangible way for the leader to seek divine direction, keeping it close to the heart.
Okay, so we've seen the beauty, the stones, the wisdom. But now the deep dive takes a much darker, much more intense turn.
It really does. Because approaching God in this context isn't just some symbolic ritual. It is literally a matter of life and death.
Yeah, let's talk about the blue robe worn under the ephod. Specifically, the hem of this robe. It's lined with alternating pomegranates made of that colored yarn and actual bells made of pure gold.
Right, and the text is incredibly explicit about why those bells are there. It says the sound of the bells must be heard when Aaron enters and exits the sanctuary so that he will not die.
So that he will not die. I mean, that is just chilling.
Both the Holman and NAA study notes really emphasize the gravity of this. Approaching God carelessly leads to death. The holiness of God is so pure, so potent, that it is inherently dangerous to a flawed human being.
Right. It's not that God is just arbitrarily striking people down. It's that impurity cannot survive in the presence of absolute purity.
Exactly. And the bells serve to call attention to the priest's respectful, reverent approach. It proves he's doing it exactly as instructed.
Imagine being an Israelite outside the tent. You're just standing there, hearing that faint jingling from behind the curtain, and you just know that as long as those bells are ringing, the high priest is still alive.
It would be terrifying, honestly.
It's almost like a reverse alarm system. Usually, an alarm rings to keep an intruder out,
Right.
like a warning.
Right, yeah.
But here, the bells ring to announce that a welcomed but very fragile servant is respectfully entering the presence of a king. It ensures he isn't treated as a hostile intruder.
That's a great way to put it. The ringing is the sound of his survival.
So, from the bells on the hem, let's look at the absolute extreme top and the hidden bottom of the garments. Because both of these deal with the core issue of human sin.
Right. Up top, tied to the turban with a blue cord, is a plate of pure gold. And engraved on it are the words, "Holy to the Lord."
A very bold statement to wear on your forehead.
Definitely. But then, beneath everything, reaching from the waist to the thighs, are linen undergarments. And they're meant to cover the priest's naked flesh when they approach the altar.
And again, the text says this is so they do not incur guilt and die.
Yes. And the NAA study notes make a brilliant connection here. Why this strict rule about covering naked flesh with linen, it actually connects all the way back to the Garden of Eden.
Oh, we really?
Yeah. Think about it. Adam and Eve's immediate reaction to the fall was realizing their nakedness and feeling profound shame. They tried to cover themselves.
Oh, wow. So what does this all mean when you put it together?
It means that approaching God requires dealing with that original shame.
These garments aren't just a uniform then. They are like a theological time machine.
I love that. How so?
Well, the undergarments are physically covering the ancient shame of the fall in Eden,
Yeah.
right? But at the exact same time, the gold plate on the forehead is declaring, "Holy to the Lord."
Right.
It's effectively claiming that this brokenness, this shame, is being fully restored by God. It's covering the past and declaring the future simultaneously.
Exactly. It's a complete picture of redemption worn on the human body.
That is just incredible. I mean, what a journey from top to bottom. We started with this divine craftsmanship, the spirit of wisdom.
Right, the glory and beauty.
Yeah, and then we saw the sheer burden of leadership on the shoulders, the unique, multifaceted love carried over the heart with those 12 different stones.
And, of course, the life-saving golden bells on the hem of the robe.
Yes, the sound of survival, ending with the covering of humanity's oldest shame while declaring absolute holiness. It's just brilliant.
It really is. And, for the listener, while we obviously don't wear golden bells or breast pieces today, this text asks us a really enduring question.
Yeah, what's the takeaway here for our daily lives?
It asks us to consider how we approach the things we hold most sacred. Do we approach our callings, our communities, our faith with deep reverence and preparation? Or do we just stumble in carelessly?
That is such a powerful question, and it leaves you with a final thought to ponder as you go about your week.
Yeah.
Think about this. If every thread and every stone and every bell on the high priest was a physical reflection of his community and his God,
Hmm.
if your daily wardrobe had to accurately reflect the true condition of your community and your deepest values,
Hmm.
what would your garments look like?
Wow. That's quite a mirror to hold up.
It really is. It gives you something to chew on, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this exploration of Exodus 28. God blesses all the listeners, and we will see you on the next Deep Dive.